The story begins with a man named Hiraku kicking the bucket in a hospital bed. After this, he finds himself in the divine realm where the deity watching over his world informs him that he's dead. Because he lived a miserable life and died of a terminal illness, the deity decides to give him a second chance at life, this time with a healthy body. The deity asks him if he has any requests for his new life, so he reveals that he would like to try out farming, because while he was terminally ill at the hospital, he watched a lot of shows about it. The deity grants him this request and also gives him the almighty farming tool to help him start his new quiet life as a farmer. When Hiraku wakes up, he finds himself in a forest, and he's delighted that he can actually move his body for the first time in so long. Looking around, he notices that he's the only one around, and this makes him happy that he got his wish. At first, the guy is a bit overwhelmed by farming in this new life. But then he remembers the mighty farming tool he was given, and notices that when he uses it, tilling the soil is a lot easier. After some time, he also realizes that there could be dangers in the forest, so he searches for a safe place until he finally finds a clearing with a huge tree. He sets up camp there, and after digging the ground, he finally finds water. As such, he uses his tools to build a well, and starts to cultivate his first field there. In order to do this, he first has to clear the bushes and cut down the smaller trees around. Hiraku thinks it's going to be a difficult task, but to his surprise, he's able to plant many crops without seeds, and after only one night, he wakes up to see that they have already started sprouting. After a few weeks,
I can't wait to see how my crops turn out.
He comes across two black wolves that look like they're a couple because one of them is pregnant. Seeing how gentle they are, he feeds them some meat and then adopts them, naming them Kuro and Yuki. That night, 4 cute puppies are born, so Hiraku is delighted because he always wanted to have a dog. After a while, he finally harvests his first crop and feels very accomplished that his new life is going as planned.
Well, there's no rush. I'll take my time.
As time goes on, Hiraku and the wolves find a water source, and he connects it to his farm via an irrigation system he created. Soon, the forest starts to get cold, and with winter approaching, he decides to gather some firewood for the very cold nights. That's when he's approached by a giant spider that waves him hello and shows off its amazing skills to create silk clothing. After seeing this, Hiraku allows the spider to live in a nearby tree and allows it to eat some of his potatoes when he finds out that it's the creature's favorite food. A while later, the spider makes him a nice sweater to help him stay warm during the winter, along with bed sheets and curtains, to make his home a lot cozier. Hiraku names the spider Zabuton, and by the time winter comes around, he has enough food and a warm home to make his hibernation plan a success. Soon, spring comes around, and by this time, the grown wolf puppies set out and return with partners. Zabuton also returns with many baby spiders, and when Hiraku realizes that he now has more mouths to feed, he decides to expand his settlement. One day, Zabuton tells him that something is headed their way, so he goes into the forest with his pack of wolves. That's where he finds a naked, disheveled girl named Lu sitting by a tree. He decides to check on her, but she goes all vampire on him and sucks his blood. She's suddenly rejuvenated after this, and even though they got off on the wrong foot, Hiraku invites her back to his farm when he learns that she is being chased. Back home, they spend some time together, harvesting some crops, and after that, Hiraku learns that apart from being a vampire, she's also a researcher. Lu reveals that she got into a fight with some nobles who wanted to steal her research. Even though these two just met that day, they're both attracted to each other to the point that Hiraku proposes to her, and she accepts immediately. The next morning, Lu suggests adding herbs to the farm, so Hiraku agrees to help her since it would help her research. Suddenly, the alarms at the settlement go off, so Hiraku and Lu rush to the scene where they see an angel named Tia surrounded by the wolves, who somehow managed to tie her up. Tia begs to be released and apologizes for attacking the dogs first, so Hiraku frees her and then she heals her injuries. That's when she reveals that she's come to take Lu away because there's a huge bounty on the vampire's head. Of course, the dogs quickly attack her again, so once again, Hiraku is forced to intervene. Inside their hut, Tia introduces herself and reveals her mission, but Lu just informs her that they're married and even invites the angel to stay with them. They take her out to show her the farm and then even win her over with some tasty strawberries. Soon, the wolves have even more puppies. so Hiraku decides to expand the farm even more than before. At the same time, some of Zabuton's children leave the settlement to have their own territories, while the rest stay back on Hiraku's trees. It soon becomes clear that more hands are needed on the farm, so that's when Tia invites 7 girls from an elf clan. They're hoping for a place to call home so that they can rebuild their population, and Lu encourages Hiraku to allow them to stay. The elves have long lifespans and many skills that would really speed up the development and growth of the farming settlement, so Hiraku is happy to have them around. Hiraku thinks about expanding even further, but he's afraid that the demon lord that rules the forest would not like him trespassing so much. However, Lu assures him that the demon lord won't care about that, so he takes her word and starts working on the waterways and irrigation system to improve them. One day, Zabuton captures a queen bee and gives it to Hiraku, so he builds a shed for the friendly bee and her worker to protect their hive. He hopes that they would produce honey for him and the others on the farm. After that, he digs a reservoir so he can draw water from the river. And with the help of the girls on the farm, he builds a waterway that fills up the reservoir. They catch some fish in the process, so he prepares a nice meal for everyone, even though they're reluctant to taste the strange fish at first. Now having a lot of water, they plant rice for the first time.
It's all slimy.
And then they construct a bathhouse, all while using slimes to purify the water. Hiraku takes a relaxing bath afterward, and the hot girls insist on joining him, even though he's clearly a married man. The next day, they find 5 more elven girls, and Hiraku gladly accepts them into the farm. No surprise there, because who wouldn't want to have more hot chicks, more friends to help on the farm? Meanwhile, Kuro the wolf thinks about how Hiraku's survival is a miracle. He's grateful to the farmer for helping his wolf family find a permanent home. He also thinks about the huge power he senses coming from the farming tool, and is sure that the gentle farmer is no ordinary guy. With many more people around, the girls decide to rebuild Hiraku's farmhouse, and by the time they're done, he's overwhelmed by the huge improvements. It's basically a mansion at this point, so the girls give him a tour of the place, showing him the single rooms for him, Lu, and Tia, along with the huge dining area for everyone. Later, Hiraku goes to harvest his first crop of spices, which he uses to make curry with naan bread, which he feeds to everyone outside, even though they're reluctant to taste it at first. Not surprisingly, they all love the food, and even queue up for second portions. Soon, winter draws bare again, so they store their vegetables in wooden boxes and stock up with supplies, mostly firewood. Winter finally arrives, so everyone stays indoors to avoid the freezing cold, and that's when Hiraku introduces them to board games, especially with the tension rising between Lu and Tia. The wolves prove that they can also play when Kuro beats Lu.
Good luck, Hiraku.
Come on!
Cool. 8 pins, not bad.
Spring comes around again, and everyone is happy to be outside again. But that's when a giant wyvern arrives at the farm. The wyvern attempts to blast them with a powerful fireball, but Tia and Lu manage to block the attack with a big magical shield. Unfortunately, the flames scatter around the farm, which causes a fire, and everyone scampers to put out the flames. Tia and Lu aren't sure that they can defeat the flying beast, and that's when Hiraku takes action, transforming his farming tool into a magical spear, and killing the wyvern with it. The Demon Lord's generals are informed of this great feat, and even the Dragon King Drine becomes terrified of the mysterious man living in the Death Forest, because they know that only one wyvern would require an entire army to take down. While Hiraku teaches the elves how to make wine with his freshly harvested grapes, the goddess of agriculture scolds the deity for giving the farmer a replica of the Holy Lance, which is currently disguised as his farming tool. The weapon drains a ton of life force, but because of Hiraku's fast recovery and very healthy body, he's not affected. One day, Zabuton and the wolves catch another vampire who turns out to be Lu's sister Flora, who also happens to be a researcher. Flora is happy that her sister is married, but leaves to continue her research, and returns a month later with many ogre maids that want to settle on the farm. The competitive Tia invites 3 more angels and a tribe of lizardmen who provide chickens, and after that, more elves hope to have babies, which makes Hiraku wish that other men would arrive on the farm. With the fast expansion and growth of the settlement, Hiraku organizes a celebration feast after they name their settlement the Great Tree Village. And during the festivities, the others name Hiraku, the village mayor.
Guardian Angel! Seriously?
Shortly after this, Demon General Beezle visits Hiraku, and remembering that the Demon Lord controls the forest, he offers 10% of his harvest as an annual tax. Beezle accepts it, and later tells his colleagues that he only signed the contract because he was afraid of the great tree spirit's forces, including the vampire princess Lu, the angel of annihilation Tia, lizardmen, and elves, not forgetting the pack of inferno wolves. Dragon King Drime also visits the village and gifts Hiraku a sword. At this point, the village mayor orders the construction of an embassy to house overnight visitors, because this is how they'll foster diplomatic relationships. He also teaches his people the difference between guests and intruders, and after that, they're visited by beastmen from Howling Village. Their leader Garf negotiates a trade agreement, offering silver, iron, and glass in exchange for food crops. They also strike a deal with Drime, who agrees to transport goods between the two villages in exchange for wine. The inter-village relationship grows stronger, and 20 of the beastmen ask to move into Great Tree Village. But Hiraku is disappointed when he sees that they're just more chicks. At this point, he insists that the Howling Village sends actual beastmen to live with him, but is only further disappointed to receive young boys who can't get married for at least 10 years. As the beastmen get used to life in his village, Hiraku starts to worry about being the only one who can't use magic. The village is suddenly threatened by 2 huge monsters fighting outside the village, so he kills the troublemakers and cooks them for another village feast. Later, the village is visited by Donovan and his dwarves, hoping to get Hiraku's famous wine in exchange for distillation technology. This new tech allows the village to brew corn whiskey, and after a while, some of the dwarves move into the village to work as the community's brewers. Hiraku is happy about this because he thinks that the dwarves will marry some of the ladies in his village, but the short men only like women with beards. Hiraku almost kills 2 strange dragons that appear in the village, but Drime's assistant Gucci stops him, and afterward, he learns that they are the Dragon King's wife and daughter, Grafaloon and Lasti. After seeing the Great Tree Village's forces, Grafaloon asks Lasti to stay back as a diplomat, not wanting Hikaru to ever become their enemy. She agrees, and is later given responsibility over all diplomatic relations. On her first job, she meets with Demon General Beezle, who visits the village for another trading deal. Beezle is terrified because Hiraku now has dragons, so he sends his daughter Florem to the village as a spy. While Lastismoon is distracted, Florem snoops around and is shocked that their army is strong enough to fight against the demon army. After realizing how formidable the Great Tree Village and its mayor are, Florem decides to stay in the village longer than she initially planned. Soon, autumn comes, and Hiraku prepares a hot pot for everyone. The food makes him miss seafood, so Lu and her sister begin researching about it. Afterward, Florem and Lasti arrange to trade for fish with a merchant named Michael, who asks to become Hiraku's purveyor and manage all trade between the Great Tree Village and other communities. One day, Hiraku is challenged by yet another dragon, and of course, he defeats her. It's only after capturing her that he discovers that she is Drime's older sister, Hakurin. Drime explains that his salty sister, who is still single, was just jealous because she thought that Lasti married Hiraku, but the village mayor just asks her to repair all the damage. News travels fast, and Beezle learns that Hakuren is now in the village. This makes his colleagues so terrified that General Randon submits his resignation letter. Meanwhile, Hakuren tries to move into the village as a jobless couch potato, but Hiraku gives her difficult tasks that force her to get a job as the village schoolteacher. One day, the Lamia ladies inform Hiraku that the Inferno wolf puppies raided their home, so he apologizes and trades their dungeon treasure for some crops. After this, the Lamia form a delivery service for all the trading villages, and this strengthens their relationship with Hiraku. Back in the Demon King's castle, Princess Yuri rallies her forces to attack the Great Tree Village, thinking that Florem has been taken hostage there. Florem is visited by her father one night while she's working on the village accounts. Beezle informs her of Yuri's intentions, so Florem secretly arranges with the Lamia ladies to defeat Yuri's army, but not kill them. Afterward, Florem hides the invasion attempt from Hiraku, but punishes Yuri and her cohorts by making them work in the village. They try to escape several times, but get caught by the Inferno wolves and demon spiders each time. Left with no choice, they're forced to help Florem with the village paperwork, and this earns them the collective name, the Town Hall Trio. After seeing how peaceful the Great Tree Village is, and how Florem was never a hostage, Yuri regrets her initial plans and just goes back home, while the trio decides to stay back, revealing that they prefer village life to politics. Yuri's experience changes her former rebellious nature, and her father is so confused by her sudden maturity that he assumes she might have a man now. On the way back from her parents' home, Hakuren comes across 5 mountain elves with their leader, Ya, and brings them back to the village after they express their desire to live there. One day, the elves learn of a blood viper living in a dungeon, so they decide to hunt it for meat, because they believe it would increase their chances of getting pregnant. Winter arrives again, and Run falls very ill, but Hiraku is suddenly informed that it's because she's pregnant with his child. As time goes on, Lu assures Hiraku that she and the baby will be fine, so he goes about his daily schedule of running the village. While he's checking farm everything, he reveals that he's been intentionally waking up late because the maids always want to wake up earlier than him. This caused them not to have enough rest and made them start looking like zombies. He also notices how lazy the 3 angels are when they're off duty. But it's okay with him since they make you for it by working very hard to protect the village. After lunch, Hiraku ensures that everyone gets involved in some necessary combat training to keep them all fit. The next day, Hiraku visits Donovan and the dwarves at the village brewery and is impressed with their work so far. Donovan asks if they can increase the number of grapes harvested by 3 times, so the mayor goes to assess the vineyard to see how the expansion can work. He's interrupted when a strange man suddenly arrives at the village, but he turns out to be vampire progenitor Vargreif, who is also like Lou and Flora's 4,000-year-old grandfather. Apparently, Lou's pregnancy is very rare since vampires usually have children after turning their partners into vampires too. The progenitor sees the statues Hiraku built and reveals that he also met the deity before being reborn as a vampire. Hiraku carves Vargreif, a copy of the statue, and the progenitor leaves with it shortly after. He donates it to the temple of the god of creation, and the priests are so amazed by it that they take the great tree village under their protection. Later, Vargreif sends a magnificent grand piano to the village to celebrate Lou's pregnancy, but the villagers are too nervous to play it, so Hiraku gets a cheaper one for them to practice with first. Soon, it's almost time for Lou to give birth, so the entire village gives up happy juice in solidarity until Lou can drink again. With only a few days until Lou is due to give birth, literally everyone in the village arrives with gifts for her. Lou eventually falls into labor, and Hiraku is so worried that he leaves the house and distracts himself by wandering around the village. Lou gives birth to a son, and they name him Alfred, a half-vampire, making Hiraku overjoyed at being a first-time parent. 1 week after Alfred's birth, Hiraku works hard to prepare another plot of land for farming, and reflects on how supportive the villagers have been. As such, he decides the village needs its own currency, hoping that he can reward the villagers with the coins he makes. He feels that the economy of the village shouldn't only depend on external trade, so he forges great tree coins and gives 3 to every villager, even though they're not yet sure how much each coin is worth. Sometime after that, Hiraku throws a grand feast to celebrate Alfred's birth, and the dwarves brew a special celebratory wine to be saved until Alfred is old enough to drink. Back in the Demon King's castle, Beazle finally reveals his intention to become allies with the Great Tree Village, feeling that it's too powerful to ever be defeated. General Gratz suggests using marriage as a means of cementing their relationship with Hiraku's village, but the Demon Lord fumes at the idea, claiming that he doesn't want to give his daughter out. Meanwhile, back in the Great Tree Village, the angels inform Hiraku that over 100 people are seeking refuge in his village because of the ongoing wars. Hearing this, the kind mayor reveals that they have only one option, and then give the go-ahead to build an entire second village nearby to accommodate the newcomers.